Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today we're taking a close look at PagSeguro Digital. You sent us a bunch of information covering their business, recent performance, and what analysts are saying. Our mission is to unpack all this for you and see what really stands out. We've got professional analyses, due diligence reports, recent news, lots to explore. Let's maybe start with the basics. What exactly does PagSeguro Digital do? Looks like they wear a couple hats.
That's right. PagSeguro Digital basically operates with two main arms. You've got PagSeguro, which is all about the digital payment side, and then there's PagBank, handling the banking services. So yeah, they've built out quite a comprehensive fintech setup.
Okay, payments and banking. So where's the revenue actually coming from? What are their main income sources?
Well, their money mostly comes from transaction fees. That's a big chunk, 57.3% of their total revenue. They also make money from financial services and, interestingly, selling their point-of-sale devices, those POS terminals you see in shops.
Right, those little card machines.
And those interchange fees.
Sure.
The percentage PagSeguro pays out to card networks and banks on each transaction.
Yeah.
That eats up about 81% of their transaction gross margin. So it's a huge cost factor for them. Even small shifts there really matter for their bottom line.
Wow, 81%. Okay. And who are they aiming these services at? Who's their core customer?
They're really focused on small, medium-sized businesses, SMBs, and also micro merchants, and specifically within Brazil. That focus, on a particular segment in one country is pretty central to their whole strategy.
Makes sense. So serving smaller Brazilian businesses with payment processing, the POS machines, prepaid cards, and you mentioned active digital banking clients too. Seems like a lot.
Oh yeah, a substantial number.
Right.
16.1 million active clients using their digital banking accounts. It really shows the kind of scale they've managed to achieve on the banking side.
16 million. That's impressive. And I saw a note here, their parent company is UOL. Does that give them like a leg up?
It certainly could. Being linked to a big established internet company like UOL, that might offer advantages. Maybe brand recognition, customer reach, perhaps even some tech synergies.
Okay, interesting connection there. So we've got a handle on what they do and who they serve. Let's pivot to how they're doing financially. What do the recent numbers tell us?
Okay. Their market cap is reported at $3.08 billion. And what's kind of notable is their beta. It's 0.80. That suggests the stock, historically anyway, has been less volatile than the broader market. Could appeal to some investors looking for stability.
Less jumpy than the market average. Got it. And they've been public for a bit now, right? Since early 2018.
That's right, January 2018. And their revenue had already hit about $3.4 billion in the fiscal year before this latest data.
And the most recent full-year figure.
It's holding steady at $3.4 billion. So consistent performance there, showing they're maintaining their position in the fintech space.
And are they making money? What about profitability?
Yes, they are. Net income for the fiscal year was $392.58 million. So healthy profits, which points to a pretty solid underlying business model.
Good to see. Digging in a bit, earnings per share, the EPS, is $1.24 for the trailing 12 months. How should we think about that number?
Well, EPS is just profit per share, right? It's key for investors. Tells you how much the company's earning for each share out there. That $1.24 provides a baseline for any valuation talk.
And related to that, the PE ratio, price to earnings, is 7.62. The note says that's potentially undervalued compared to the sector. That seems quite low.
It does seem low, yeah. A PE of 7.62 could suggest the market isn't giving them full credit for their earnings compared to others in fintech.
But could it also mean something else, like maybe the market's worried about growth or the Brazilian economy, not just simple undervaluation?
That's a really good point. It's rarely just one thing. Maybe the market is factoring in those regulatory uncertainties in Brazil more heavily. Or perhaps there's a bit of a wait-and-see attitude about how this combined payments and banking thing fully plays out. We need to consider those possibilities.
Right. And you mentioned margins earlier, the gross margin for the transaction side.
Yeah, 37.8%. But remember, that big chunk, about 81% of that, goes out as interchange fees to the card issuers, really underscores their cost structure and how much they rely on those card networks.
Okay. Let's shift gears to more recent stuff, upcoming earnings and what analysts are thinking now.
Sure. So first quarter 2025 results and the full 2025 outlook are due out May 13th, 2025. There's a conference call too. Definitely a key date to circle if you're following them.
May 13th. Got it. And it looks like one big bank just got more positive on them.
That's right. Citigroup recently upgraded their rating to buy. That signals, increased confidence from their analysts about PagSeguro's prospects.
We also saw some info on past performance. Looks like Q3 of 2024 is pretty strong.
Very strong. They saw a 37% jump in total payment volume, TPV, and a 20% rise in revenue. That performance likely helped push the stock price up moving into 2025.
And where's the stock trading now, roughly?
It's been hovering around $9.20 recently, and the trading volume's been quite high, over 4 million shares, which suggests a good amount of market interest.
What's the overall analyst view at the moment?
The consensus right now is a moderate buy, but it's worth pointing out the price targets analysts have set are all over the place, from a low of just over $5 to a high near $17.
Wow, quite a spread.
Yeah, the average target seems to land somewhere between $11 and $12. So, on average, analysts see some potential upside from the current price.
Okay, and what about institutional ownership? Who holds the stock?
It's a bit mixed. The data suggests the number of institutional owners went down slightly. But interestingly, the institutions that are invested have increased their average allocation to PagSeguro.
So fewer institutions, but the ones remaining are maybe more committed. Could be bullish.
Could be interpreted that way, yes. Higher conviction among the remaining holders.
All right, let's zoom out again. Talk about the core strengths and the potential risks here.
I think a key strength, maybe the biggest one, is that banking license. It lets them offer a much wider range of financial services than just payments. That's a serious advantage for deepening those customer relationships.
And we mentioned the UOL connection earlier as a plus.
Yes, that link to the parent company, UOL, could definitely bring benefits. Maybe access to their user base, cross-promotion opportunities, that kind of ecosystem advantage.
And operating in Brazil itself is seen as a positive, right? Because the market's growing.
Absolutely. The Brazilian digital payments market is still high growth. That gives them a big runway for expansion and getting more people using their services.
Okay, now for the other side. What are the main risks people point to?
A big one is how much they depend on partnerships with the card schemes. Visa, MasterCard. Any changes in those relationships or the costs involved could hit their profits.
And regulations. Fintech in Brazil seems like a moving target sometimes.
That's another key risk. The rules are still evolving. New regulations could pop up that create challenges or force them to change how they operate.
And we keep coming back to those interchange fees.
We do, because their sensitivity to those transaction costs is really important. It's a constant factor affecting their profitability.
So who are they actually competing against day to day in Brazil?
Well, their main focus is SMB banking and payments there. And they really emphasize that full banking license as something that sets them apart from some competitors.
Who are the main rivals mentioned?
The big ones listed are Mercado. They're tightly linked with Mercado Libre's e-commerce platform, very strong there, especially in Argentina and Brazil. And then there's PicPay. Their focus seems more on retail payments, really pushing a mobile-first approach in Brazil.
So different angles. Mercado goes strong in e-commerce, PicPay in mobile retail.
Right. And PagSeguro is trying to carve out its niche with that full banking offering for SMBs, trying to be more of a one-stop shop for those businesses' financial needs beyond just taking payments.
Looking forward then, what could really drive their growth from here?
Well, big opportunities seem to lie in getting more people signed up for PagBank's digital accounts. And then, crucially, cross-selling other financial products, loans, insurance, whatever, to the merchants they already have processing payments. Leveraging those existing merchant relationships could be really powerful.
Makes sense. Any potential speed bumps or headwinds we should be aware of?
One thing mentioned is PIX. That's the instant payment system from Brazil's central bank. As that gets more popular, it could potentially cut into the volume of traditional card transactions, which would affect those transaction fees they rely on.
Ah, PIX. Yes, that's definitely changing things. Okay, let's dig back into some of those financials. We have a bit more detail here.
You do. So Q4 2024 revenue actually beat estimates by a decent margin, 5.76%. Came in at $875.27 million. So they finished last year on a strong note.
And the very latest results are coming soon, right? Q1 2025.
Yep, expected May 13th, 2025. That will give us the freshest picture.
What about year-over-year revenue growth trends?
Revenue grew almost 13% in fiscal 2023. The projection for fiscal 2025 is a bit slower, around 5.75%. Historically, though, a lot of that growth came from really strong total payment volume, or TPV, increases in their core MSMB segment, that's micro, small, and medium businesses, and also their LMEC segment.
MSMB and LMEC. What's LMEC again? That growth looked particularly fast.
LME stands for Lower Merchant E-Commerce. That segment's TPV grew by 50%. It suggests they're making good progress in the cross-border e-commerce payment space for smaller merchants in Brazil.
50% growth there. Interesting. And how about earnings per share? Any more detail?
Well, we don't have Q4 24, Q1 25 EPS yet, but Q3 24 EPS was $0.34. That beat analyst expectations by over 17%. And importantly, it was the fourth quarter in a row they beat EPS estimates. So a pattern of positive surprises there.
Consistent beats. And what's management saying about future earnings?
They've guided for an 11% growth in EPS for the full fiscal year 2025. Shows they're pretty confident about staying profitable and growing earnings.
Okay, and back to valuation. We talked about that low PE. How does it stack up against similar companies?
Well, this data doesn't give us their exact PE or price to book right now. It notes that peers like StoneCo often trade in the 20-30x PE range. So that 7.62 PE we saw earlier for PagSeguro does look quite low in comparison. Provide some context.
Let's touch on their debt. Looks like they carry some.
They do. As of February 2025, they had a net debt position of about negative $432 million. That's roughly medical $1.39 per share. Basically, $132 million in cash versus $565 million in debt. The debt-to-equity ratio is probably elevated, but that's not really unusual for fintechs investing heavily in growth.
And finally, margins. How profitable are the actual operations?
They're reporting pretty strong margins. Gross profit margin around 47% and operating margin around 32% suggests the core business is quite healthy and efficient.
Okay, let's circle back one last time to those competitive advantages, now with all this financial detail in mind.
That full stack model, payments, banking, credit, all under one roof in Brazil, still seems like the key differentiator. Compared to StoneCo or Mercado Pago, which might be more focused, PagSeguro offers that broader suite.
And they're still bringing in new customers at a good clip.
Seems so. Around 2 million new clients annually, the data suggests. That, plus the strong TPV growth in their main SMB segment, reinforces their market leadership position.
And they're not just about the small guys, right? They have that e-commerce piece too.
Correct. They're a leader in the Brazilian MSMB digital payments market, #2 overall, behind Mercado Libre, according to the sources. But they're also pushing into that cross-border e-commerce space with the LMEC segment, where we saw that really impressive 50% PPV growth.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. It seems PagSeguro Digital is definitely playing in a lively, growing fintech space in Brazil. They've got this unique full-stack approach, the recent Citigroup upgrade, past performance, that looks positive. But clearly, things like regulation, competition, PIX, those are factors to watch, and that May 13th earnings call feels pretty important for the latest updates. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Hopefully this overview gives you a clearer picture of PagSeguro Digital based on the info we had. It definitely leaves me wondering, how will that full stack strategy really hold up against both the established players and the newer competitors popping up in Brazil?
It's a great question. You see this company trying to bundle everything, payments, banking, credit. In theory, that builds stickiness, right? Makes it harder for customers to leave. But it also makes the business more complex. Can they execute well across all those areas? Especially with competitors like Mercado Pago leveraging a massive e-commerce platform and nimble players like BigPay focusing purely on payments. It's a fascinating dynamic to watch unfold. How sustainable is their current edge?
Indeed. Lots to think about there. If you found this examination of PagSeguro Digital insightful, please do subscribe, like, and comment. We always appreciate hearing from you and your engagement.